It was a picture-perfect summer day. Flags waved, crowds cheered, hope hung in the air, thick and sweet like cotton candy. Former President Donald J. Trump, his face beaming, was back on the campaign trail. He was in the midst of a fiery speech, his words echoing through the heartland of America. Then, a sharp crack. A collective gasp. The world tilted on its axis. America watched in horror as the unthinkable unfolded. The man who had once been the most powerful person on earth was now lying wounded, his future uncertain. The date was July 13, 2024. The location was a campaign rally in Des Moines, Iowa. The event, a turning point in American history. This was not just an attack on a former president, it was an attack on the very fabric of American democracy. The world held its breath, waiting to see if America would ever be the same. The day had begun like any other on the campaign trail. Excitement crackled in the air. Trump thrived on the energy of the crowd. He was back in his element, feeding off the cheers. His message was familiar: nostalgia, grievance, and promises to make America great again. His supporters hung on his every word. They believed in his vision for America. The shot rang out at 3:42 p.m., slicing through the cheers and applause. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. The crowd froze, their collective breath caught in their throats. Confusion reigned as people struggled to comprehend what they had just heard. Then, pandemonium erupted. Screams filled the air as people scrambled for cover, their faces etched with fear and disbelief. The Secret Service, trained for this very moment, sprang into action. Agents swarmed the stage, shielding Trump with their bodies. In the chaos, it was hard to tell what had happened. Had there been more than one shot? Who was the shooter? Was Trump injured? The air crackled with tension and uncertainty. As minutes stretched into an eternity, one thing became horrifyingly clear. This was no accident. This was a deliberate attempt on the life of a former president. America and the world watched in stunned silence as the events unfolded on live television. The images seared into their collective consciousness. Miles away in the gilded cage of Trump Tower, Melania Trump watched the horror unfold on television. Her blood ran cold. Her breath caught in her throat. Her world crumbled around her. The image of her husband, her protector, lying vulnerable on that stage would forever be etched into her memory. The fear that gripped her heart was primal, visceral, the fear of a wife facing the unthinkable, the potential loss of her husband. She had always known the risks. She had seen the hate in the eyes of his detractors, the vitriol spewed on social media, the ever-present threat of violence that seemed to follow her husband like a shadow. But nothing, not even her worst nightmares, could have prepared her for this moment. As she waited for news, her mind raced with a million questions, a million fears. Was he alive? Was he hurt? Would she ever see him again? The silence from the television was deafening, amplifying her terror with every passing second. Section 5, Divided We Stand. America reacts in shock and fear. Across the country, America reeled in shock and disbelief. The news spread like wildfire, jumping from television screens to social media feeds, ricocheting through homes and workplaces, leaving a trail of stunned silence in its wake. The initial shock soon gave way to a torrent of emotions: fear, anger, sadness, confusion. The country seemed to hold its breath, united in its horror, yet deeply divided in its response. For some, the attack was a horrifying reminder of the fragility of American democracy and the deep divisions that plagued the nation. They mourned for a country torn apart by hate, a country where political violence had become all too common. For others, the attack was a perverse vindication of their own anger and resentment. They celebrated the attack, their online comments dripping with venom and glee. In that moment, it became painfully clear that America was a nation at war with itself, its citizens separated by an ever-widening chasm of ideology and mistrust. Section 6, Global Repercussions, a world holding its breath. The news of the attack on Donald Trump sent shockwaves across the globe. From London to Tokyo, the world watched in stunned silence. World leaders condemned the attack and expressed their condolences. The attack raised questions about the state of democracy. The world held its breath, waiting to see how America would respond. Section 7. The Unthinkable Reality, Vulnerability of Power in a Divided Nation. The attempt on Trump's life laid bare a chilling reality. In an era of heightened political division, no one, not even a former president, was immune from the threat of violence. The attack forced America to confront the uncomfortable truth that its own brand of hyper-partisanship had created a breeding ground for extremism. The line between passionate political discourse and dangerous rhetoric had become blurred, fueled by a toxic mix of misinformation, social media echo chambers, and a deep-seated distrust in institutions. The attack on Trump was not an isolated incident. It was a symptom of a deeper malaise, a reflection of a society struggling to cope with rapid social and economic change. The attack was a wake-up call, a stark reminder that the fabric of American democracy was fragile, vulnerable to the corrosive forces of hate and division. It was a call to action, a plea for unity and understanding in a nation increasingly fractured by its differences. Section 8. A time for reflection. Rethinking security in a volatile world. In the aftermath of the attack, America was forced to confront its own vulnerabilities. The security measures that had once seemed impenetrable had been breached. The question on everyone's mind was, how could this happen? The attack on Trump exposed the limitations of even the most sophisticated security apparatus. It highlighted the need for a fundamental reassessment of how public figures, particularly those as polarizing as Trump, were protected. The attack sparked a national conversation about the balance between security and freedom. How could America protect its leaders without turning the country into a police state? How could it safeguard the right to free speech while also preventing incitement to violence? There were no easy answers. The challenge facing America was how to create a society where political discourse, even when heated, could occur without fear of violence, a society where security measures were effective but not oppressive. The attack on Trump was a stark reminder that the price of freedom was eternal vigilance. Healing a nation's wounds. As the nation grappled with the aftermath, the healing began. Physical wounds would heal, but the scars on the American psyche would linger. The attack exposed deep divisions and anxieties. Healing required more than words. It needed efforts to bridge divides, rebuild trust, and restore shared purpose. The road to recovery would be long and difficult, but there were glimmers of hope. The outpouring of support was a testament to American democracy. The attack reminded Americans of the preciousness of their freedoms and the importance of unity. Section 10. The Legacy of the Dark Day. A turning point in American history? The attack on Donald Trump on July 13, 2024, will forever be etched in the annals of American history. It was a day that shook the nation to its core, a day that forced Americans to confront their deepest fears and divisions. But would it be a turning point? Would it serve as a catalyst for change, a wake-up call that spurred the nation to address the root causes of its political dysfunction? Only time would tell. The attack had the potential to be a watershed moment, a moment when America finally confronted the demons that had been haunting it for decades. But it also had the potential to further divide the nation, to deepen the chasm of mistrust and resentment that had been growing for years. The legacy of the dark day would depend on the choices Americans made in the days, weeks, and years to come. Section 11. Hope amidst the ruins, a call for unity and resilience. In the wake of the attack, there was a palpable sense of grief, anger, and fear. But amidst the darkness, there were also glimmers of hope. Americans reached out to one another, offering comfort and support. The attack had shaken the nation, but it reminded Americans of their common humanity and desire for unity. The road ahead would be long and difficult. Healing and rebuilding would require a sustained and collective effort. The choice was between succumbing to fear or embracing hope and unity.